A time for this week's FotMob Corner. I sit here with George next to me, just spending his whole time on the show on the FotMob app on his iPad because it gives you everything you need to be an EFL podcaster. I'm going to pick out a couple of players, one from each league that, having looked through the database that FotMob have stats-wise and data-wise, just were standing out to me. And that I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. For example, in the Championship, George, leading the league for big chances created. Not all chances, because not all chances are created equal. Big chances created. It's only Bristol City's Scott Twine. So you might not have thought of. And you might not have thought that because although he got that late winner on debut, he hasn't actually got an assist yet.
He's also barely played.
Yeah, 173 minutes.
Yeah.
Small sample, big chances created.
Yeah.
So we need to have a word with Sinclair Armstrong, Max Bird and George Earthy, because they're the ones that are missing these big chances.
Any of these, and I don't want to ask you questions you don't know the answer to, set pieces or open play?
Love where your head's at.
Thank you.
I know exactly why you would say that, because he's an excellent set piece taker. But no, of the 8 chances that he's created, 6 of them have been from open play. The big chances, I think all of them from open play. And this is why it's exciting and interesting to me, George, because Twine's obviously known for his long-range goals. He's scored 1 from inside the box. He's had a couple of trademark free kicks that have been saved by goalkeepers. But it's this creative passing that's standing out right now. It's not always a part of his game that he's been known for. Obviously, small sample size, but I think to have 5 big chances created, to be the only player in the top 10 of the Championship for expected assists that hasn't yet got an assist, I think it bodes pretty well. And if you watch the key passes themselves, the chances being created, they are perfect, like number 10 bits and bobs. It's exactly what Bristol City were crying out for, and he is, albeit only in 173 minutes, so far looking like he's providing exactly that, receiving the ball between the lines, finding pockets of space, whether it's centrally in a number 10 spot or in probably his preferred spot, just in that little left half space. He gets on the half turn, his first touch has been very good, and he's playing these quick through balls, and you need a target for your through balls, and in Sinclair Armstrong, this is a great fit. Armstrong's most dangerous attribute is his explosive pace in behind, running off the shoulders of defenders. And 2 through balls for Armstrong against Derby. Good chances that Armstrong hit straight at the keeper both times. 1 against Coventry as well. Very similar threaded through ball. Twine dropped a beautiful ball over the top for Max Bird against Millwall, who ran in behind and had his shot saved as well. So it's not Twine's fault that he doesn't have 2, 3, even 4 assists. It's down to the finishing of his teammates. But I think it's boding really well for what was quite a protracted transfer saga. Quite a commitment from Bristol City to go back and get him, having had him on loan last season. But was a massive need for them in terms of the profile of the players in their squad, and looks to have made a really good start for them, Scott Twine. In League One, I want to look at a goalkeeper, Arthur Okonkwo, as mentioned in the Wrexham chat. He is top of the League One goals prevented list for goalkeepers. He's obviously played 5 games. Most of his peers have played 4. 23-year-old keeper, so still super young in goalkeeper years. Signed on a permanent...
What's the conversion?
I think the conversion's like 1.2 to 1.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Signed on a permanent from Arsenal in the summer, and it looked incredible at the time, and it looks incredible 2 months later. He's faced 4.42 XGOT. That is XG on target faced. Now, what we have here per FotMob is basically an extra layer to the basic XG number. So this XG on target looks at the placement of the shot as well. So not just where it was taken from, but where in the goal it was aimed. It's quite a helpful metric, particularly for goalkeepers and I guess for strikers, just to give an extra layer of context around the shots that goalkeepers are actually facing or the shots that strikers are taking. And he has only conceded 2 goals from 4.42 XG on target faced. So doing a great job, made some banging saves against Bolton in particular. And we shouldn't be too surprised because last season in League 2, by the same metric, 40 expected goals on target faced, and he only conceded 31, so around 9 goals prevented there. His save percentage was the best in League 2. Comfortable claiming high balls as well. Has had 1 or 2 wobbles when sweeping up behind a high line for Wrexham, but that's fairly normal, I think, in League 1, League 2 for young keepers. And it's really important for Wrexham because last season they started the season with a shambolic situation in goal. Ben Foster was playing faced 20 shots on target in his first 4 games, conceded 13 goals in that time. No such issues this season with Okonkwo and nets. 4 clean sheets for Wrexham in 5 games. And sometimes with clean sheets, it's mainly down to the defence and what they're doing to stop the opposition from getting good chances. Sometimes it's down to a goalkeeper playing out of his skin. I think in this instance, it's a little bit of both, but probably more about Okonkwo's excellence. A great start to the season for him. And in League 2, we'll talk about Andy Cook's exploits over the weekend in just a second. But Andy Cook's quite an interesting person to look at in order to have a discussion around finishing. And that's because if you cast your mind back to 2022-23 season, Andy Cook won the Golden Boot in League 2. And then last season, playing for the same team, in broadly the same position, he did not win the Golden Boot. So what happened? Is Andy Cook declining as he gets further into his 30s? Well, 22-23 season, 28 goals, 24 of them were non-penalty goals. Last season, 17 goals, 15 non-penalty goals. So it's a drop-off of 9 goals for Cook. But if you dig deeper into the stats, they were very, very similar seasons statistically. 22-23, he had 120 shots, 17.85 expected goals, and he scored 28. Last season, 135 shots, 18.34 expected goals, but only 17 goals scored. So he did very similar things for a very similar team in the same league, but one year he scored 40% more goals than the next year. He scored 0.75 goals per 90 the season before, 0.44 last season, but his XG for both seasons was 0.48. Shots volume, shots on target volume, all pretty similar. It's just that expected goals on target figure, the quality of his finishing, that stands out as being much better in 22-23, 0.63 against 0.49. So I think it's just worth touching on that and reflecting that finishing does vary across seasons within individual players. You don't have one set in stone finishing ability, George. And Andy Cook proves that.
Yeah.
You might, but it's unlikely. Andy Cook proves that. And I think it's just worth, aside from Andy Cook, whoever you support, think about it. If your striker is having a really hot finishing season, you should absolutely celebrate it. And you don't need to go like, oh, he's overperforming his XG, I'm worried about this. Celebrate it, enjoy it, and it can last a whole year. But you are unlikely to be able to rely on it. And you should be aware that the goal return might drop off, even if the player himself is doing broadly similar things. I think that's an interesting discussion.
And it's always an important discussion to have around strikers where if we'd had a conversation last summer about Andy Cook and we spoke about how he'd overachieved, outscored his expected goals by, what was it?
10.
It's 10.
Yeah.
It's one of two things. Either alarm bells, he's not going to be able to do that again, what happened, or it's brilliant, he's a good finisher. Still probably true.
Yeah.
So this season, 17 goal haul last season off 18 expected goals is like pretty good.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of good spaces. He's not being really wasteful. He's basically on track with his XG. So yeah, I think he's interesting. I'm a bit worried about his mobility, but he's never been the most mobile.
I love Andy Cook.
Can you give me a bit of mobility stats, please?
There's no mobility stats.
Okay.
Well, there's probably like pressing stuff, but we won't get into that just yet.
No.
I'm just interested to know what causes the variability in finishing. Like, if a player was playing for a different team, had to move house, all that sort of stuff, playing in a different tactical system, you can imagine that sort of messing with their juju a little bit. But with Andy Cook, you're literally playing for the same team, broadly similar role, and it is literally just the act of finishing where there's been a big change in the output. And I just find that really interesting. Is it, things like confidence and,
massive, I'm sure,
rhythm.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to define, isn't it?
But then,
and it's so hard to work out what goes into that. Is he sleeping better?
I don't know.
Is he well rested? Is he carrying an injury?
Is everything okay at home?
Everything's fine at home. Thanks for asking.
Okay. But no, it's a good point. It's the intangibles that will have such a big impact. But also the fact is, if he's missing more chances, then maybe that means he's not hitting corners as often. Maybe he's snatching at things because he knows he's missed a couple. Like, I think there's so much that will be wrapped up inside it that is impossible for us from sitting on the outside watching the clips back to kind of pinpoint.
It's a confidence game, isn't it, finishing?
Yes.
A lot like podcasting, I find. I'm very low on confidence at the moment.
That's why you keep missing your chances.
What I do know about Andy Cook is, to tie this up,
Good
put a
segue.
bow on it.
Yeah.
He's got the highest XG in League 2 this season. He's the only striker in League 2 with 3 non-penalty goals so far. Only wide forwards Berry of Chesterfield and Molyneux of Donny have scored more than him. And he's favourite for the Golden Boot. And I can understand why. So that's the end of FotMob Corner. Using FotMob's stats and data on the FotMob app to help power some fascinating confident discussions. Do download the FotMob app. It's got you covered basically for everything that you would need, both in terms of live scores and also helping with your analysis of these leagues as well. Download it using the link in the description of this podcast and enjoy it.